everyone, welcome to a new week of literacy. So I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. So today we're going to be looking at vocabulary for effect. So to warm up our brains, I've got two things on the board for you. How many words can you think of for each of them? Ways of talking. How many ways of talking can you think of? Whispering, yelling, screaming. And then how many ways of looking can you figure out or come up with? Okay, so just pausing the video, writing down as many as you possibly can, and seeing, how many could you come up with. Once you've done that, come back and press play. All right, well done. Now, there's no correct or incorrect answer here, just as many as you could come up with. So hopefully you came up with loads of different words for those. So we're going to jump straight into learning about our topic today. So before we get into vocabulary for effect, just a quick reminder, what is the purpose of a recount? Can you remember? Well, a recount is a well, it's not really a story, is it? Sorry. It is somebody's perspective, somebody's retelling of an event that they experienced, usually something that was quite dramatic or scary. So in this case, we've been looking at a tsunami recount. And the purpose is to tell the event from your own perspective. And who is the audience? Can you remember? Well, it can be for anyone, but usually somebody who knows you or wants to know what it was like living through that kind of an experience. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at vocabulary that makes an impact on our reader. So I'm going to read this paragraph to you, and I want you to think about the impact of the words highlighted in purple. It says, "There was chaos. People were darting in all directions, and there was a lot of screaming. We were like ants scurrying around, looking for anything that would protect us from the savage wave that wanted to wipe us off the face of the earth. Looking behind, I saw the huge mass of water roaring closer. Palm trees, beach chairs, and hotel doors were twirling around as the deadly wave flattened everything around us. The noise was deafening. I literally ran for my life, but I felt hopeless as I started to feel water around my ankles." So what is the impact of those words in this text? What does it do to the reader as they read those sorts of words? Well, it makes us picture a very specific type of movement in our mind. So people darting, well, I know darting is very fast action, like running as fast as they possibly can. We've got little ants scurrying. I can make that comparison. It's a simile that makes me picture ants running in all directions. The savage wave, well, now I know that the wave isn't just deadly or unpleasant. It's savage, like it's going to hurt and destroy. The water was roaring closer, so I can almost hear the sound. So it creates a very vivid picture in my mind as I'm reading it, and it can really help with making me feel a certain way. And in this case, I feel scared because I'm like, oh my goodness, this is incredibly dangerous. So using vocabulary correctly creates an effect in our reader, and we can choose what kind of effect we want them to have or experience, okay? So let me show you some examples of vocabulary that changes it. So I've got a picture here of a church at night in a cemetery. Now, this picture could be a very pleasant, calm, nice night, like a peaceful walk by the church in the evening, and the breeze fluttered around me. But actually, let me show you the text and how the vocabulary changes that. Bats swooped dangerously close to my head as the haunting outline of the moon glared over the silhouette of the gravestones. The stench of decay hung in the damp night air as a warning to those that dared to enter. So actually, the vocabulary that we've been chosen, swooped, haunting, glared, and stench, has created a feeling of fear as opposed to calm tranquility. So the vocabulary that you use will have an effect on the reader, and you can choose what that effect will be. Okay, so having a look at this example, I've got a picture of a wedding here. People who are looking very happy. So what kind of vocabulary might you imagine that this text use? Well, probably something that's really happy. So let's have a look at another example of how vocabulary creates a mood. So, doves soared overhead as we bustled from the church doorway. The clouds parted for the beaming sun that warmed at the backs of the guests. Confetti and the scent of perfumed flowers filled the air. Laughter twirled like ribbons around the bride and groom. So this strong vocabulary here, soared, bustled, beaming, scent, laughter twirled, creates a very happy effect. I'm like, oh wow, that sounds like such a beautiful event. So our vocabulary can make a big impact on how the reader experiences the text. So let's have a bit of a go. I've written on the board some settings, so the city, the jungle, the desert, mountains, or beach, and I've chosen the mood for you. So if you're writing about the city, it's going to be happy. If you're writing about the jungle, I'd like you to write it as though it's a sad environment. If you're writing about the desert, it's about being determined to succeed or maybe escape. If it's in the mountains, I want you to write as though it's hopeful. And if you on the beach, as though you're excited. So I'm going to give you some examples before we jump into this. So if you're writing about the city, you might use words like the bright sun glinted from the skyscraper windows. If you're doing the jungle, you might say the baboon's plaintive cries pierced our hearts, or crying and piercing makes me incredibly sad. If you're talking about being determined in the desert, you might say the sand burned, the dust stung, but we marched on regardless. If you choose to write about the mountains being hopeful, you could maybe start with something like small white cloudlets hovered so close to our head that we felt like we could touch them. Or if you're going to write about the beach and being excited, you might say crabs scuttled hither and thither, children squealed in delight. So we're going to choose one, or I've said three. I'm going to do one with you first though, and you're going to choose at least two of these settings to write about in the particular mood. So I'm going to do about the city and about maybe the beach. Okay, so I'll do the beach one for us as a model. So on my, where is it there? I've got the date there, so I'm just going to title up what I'll be writing about. The beach is the setting and the mood is excited. So I want to think about what kinds of words would I use to describe something that is excited. So I might say like the excited squeals. Okay, so maybe I'm just going to write down some words here to help me. The squealing of children. That would be an excited sound. The gentle crashing of waves. So if you're doing this at home, you can write these bits either in your book or maybe on a whiteboard or a spare bit of paper, just some vocabulary that you're going to use, some strong words that create this feeling of excitement. What else creates excitement? Happily licking ice cream. What else? We'd have like the beaming sun would be a nice one to make it exciting. The beaming sun. All right, so I've got some words, vocabulary that I'm going to use now. So I'm going to write a little paragraph. It's very short, doesn't have to be very long, maybe just 3 or 4 sentences to describe a beach that is exciting, okay? Or maybe I also just like, I'm just sort of splashing. I like splashing is something that you do when you're excited. Okay, so the sun beamed down on the sand. And then I'm going to say about how that made me feel. So I've got a lovely word, so I'm gonna just, I just see my ruler later. The sun beamed down on the sand, warming the body. Oh dear, that's a very big mess, isn't it? I'm just gonna cross that out. If you make a mistake, remember guys, cross it out, write it again. It's practicing our handwriting even while we're at home. Okay, on the bodies, warming the bodies and souls of the Tourists. Tourists go to a beach. Children. Screamed in delight. As, and maybe what they were doing, as they ran into the water. All right, and then I've got what? So I've done sunbeaming, splashing, maybe I've got squealing children. I said screaming, that's good. Maybe the gently crashing waves. So I need to have full stop. Waves, gently, maybe I could have a better word since it's a bit more exciting, gently crashed against the shore, splashing and spraying all those nearby. And last but not least, I want something that makes them, like, I can tell everyone's really happy and excited. Maybe the ice cream. Ice cream. And maybe instead of it just saying they licked ice cream, I could say it dripped down. Ice cream dripped, whoops, down people's fingers, as they happily slurped, which is something you do when you're excited. You slurp up your food. Slurped on them. Okay, so I'm just going to double check. Have I got vocabulary in there that creates a feeling of excitement? So I've got beamed, so I'm happy with that. Beamed. I've got children screamed in delight, so that seems like a great bit of vocabulary. Waves gently crashed against the shore, splashing and spraying. Ice cream, I could even use, say, dripped, as people happily slurped on them. Okay, I think it sounds like a pretty happy and exciting place to be. So it's going to be your turn. Oops, going back to the right screen. I would like you to choose at least 2 different places, and I'd like you to write a little paragraph using powerful vocabulary to create the effect. So if you pick, for example, the city, I'd like you to create a paragraph as though it's a happy place. If you pick the jungle, you need to write as though it's a sad place. If you pick the mountains, as though it's a hopeful place. All right, so pause the video, choose 2 places to write about, and write a few sentences, and then come back and press play once you've done that. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use this knowledge of powerful vocabulary, and we're going to write about disasters, since we're doing a recount, and our recount's going to be about a disaster. So I've got 3 different disasters that we could that we're going to analyze, and we're going to write down some vocabulary for each of these pictures. I've got a tsunami, a bushfire, and a tornado. Okay, so in my book, and oh goodness, I keep doing that. 1, 2, there we go. In my book, I'm going to write down the first one, which was the tsunami, Tsunami. All right, so in your book, writing down tsunami. What we're going to do, let's come up with some vocabulary that describes a tsunami. So we could have something like what we had in the text. So savage. What words can you think of? I've got savage, deadly. It would destructive. The destructive wave. Writing down, so let me put that picture back up. What else? Maybe you could talk about it was all-consuming, or it flooded, or it pummeled. Pummeled is a lovely word. we've learnt pummeled. It means if you're being hit over and over. So the wave pummeled for us from all sides. Pummeled. All right. Can you think of any more? You can pause the video if you need a bit more time, but I'm happy with that. Next, I'm going to come across and I'm going to do the bushfire. It's okay if you've got some of the same words, okay? That is absolutely fine. Underline it. And I'm going to write down some vocabulary that I could use. So the fire roar, so like the roaring fire. Okay, let's go back. What else might you, the intense heat. How could you describe how hot that feels? Okay, so again, we might use deadly again, which is absolutely fine. The intense flames, intense heat, for example. Let me put that picture back up. What else? Thinking, adding as many as you can to your list. What else could we write down? I might say squinting against the light. Let me put that back so you can see what I'm writing. Squinting against the light, because it would be so bright that if I was in it, I'd be trying to close my eyes, because it's so bright and the heat is just a bit intense. Can you think of even just one more powerful verb that you could say? What can I think of? Tore through, maybe. You could say it like it tore through something. Okay, so it tore through it. All right, last but not least, we're going to do it's a hurricane or a twist. It's not a hurricane. Hurricane's too big. A twister or tornado. So let me write that up. Tornado. And I'm going to underline it again. And I'm not going to help you with this one. This is your turn. Can you come up with some vocabulary to describe? Think about the furious wind, okay, being hurtled through the air, okay? So I'd like you to write down 3 or 4 adjectives or verbs that you could use to describe this tornado. Once you've done that, come back and press play. Okie dokie, hopefully you've come up with some words. So what we're going to be doing is using these words that we've come up with. You're going to choose either the tsunami, the bushfire, or the tornado, and you're going to write a paragraph using these powerful verbs or adjectives to create a sense of dread. We're aiming to make our reader feel scared, all right? So if I was going to do, for example, I'll do the bushfire, okay? I'm going to try and use as many of these as I can, okay? So I might, and it's just as though I'm there. I'm not like making a story about my friend and I running away from the flames. No, you are just describing what you're seeing. You do not have to write a story or have any characters in there, okay? I'm going to have the flames. I'm going to have licked, like they think it's delicious. The flames licked up the trees. Tearing through them. And I might use, remember, similes and metaphors are fantastic for creating images in your reader's head. Tearing through them like paper dolls. Okay, so I've done tearing through them, okay? As the flames, you might think of a synonym for flames, roared closer, the heat became unbearable. Unbearable. And I might even go back and put in intense because I forgot to use it. Intense heat became unbearable. Done. And then I could use a conjunction to make this sentence more interesting and change that. Instead of using a full stop here, I could say, and I had to squint that's a B, my eyes against the burning light. Okay, happy, done. So it's not very long. I've actually only got 2 sentences, maybe 2 or 3. I've used roaring, squinting. Excellent. So let me just have a look now if I've got some powerful verbs in there. The flames licked up the trees, tearing through them like paper dolls. As the flames roared closer, the intense heat became unbearable, and I had to squint my eyes against the burning light. That creates a real sense of how powerful this fire is, how afraid I should be. So it's your turn. If you're going to use tsunami, bushfire, or tornado, I'd like you to write a little paragraph about describing, the setting that you're in, using those vocabulary for effect to make your reader feel how terrifying this experience is and how dangerous it is. Okay, so you can pause the video and I'd like you to write your own paragraph. Once you've done that, come back and press play. Okay, well done. Hopefully you've managed to use as many different vocabulary words that you can to make your writing interesting and make the reader feel a little bit afraid. Last thing I'm going to do is just see if I can edit my work to make it better using a different colored pen. Okay, the flames licked up the trees, tearing through them like paper dolls. As the flames roared closer, the intense heat became unbearable, and I had to squint my eyes against the burning light. Like, it needs a T to cross. Now, I haven't got any spelling mistakes, and I don't think I have any punctuation mistakes. So the last thing I'm going to do, see if I can up level it. Okay, so I might say the dangerous flames, the all-consuming flames, the greedy, seems like an appropriate word, the greedy flames licked up the trees, tearing through them like paper dolls. Again, I could change the word flames to something else, okay? As the fire roared closer, as the furnace of flames roared closer, I might just change it to fire. As the fire, as the burning ball of flames, whatever you want to do. All right, so I've up-leveled my work, so I'm much happier with that. So your turn, go away in a different colored pen or pencil and edit your work, make it better. It's your responsibility to make your writing as good as it can be before your teachers have a read. Okay, so that is the end of our lesson today. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to make your vocabulary more interesting. I would like to say a big well done for your hard work over the last week, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a lovely day. Bye.